Today we're talking about seasons. There are several seasons in a business. There's the season to prepare the soil. There's the season to plant, that's the sowing season. There's the season to nurture and to tend what you've planted. And finally, the one that everyone's excited about, the harvest season. Dear African entrepreneur, today we're talking about seasons. There are several seasons in a business. There's the season to prepare the soil. There's the season to plant, that's the sowing season. There's the season to nurture and to tend what you've planted. And finally, the one that everyone's excited about, the harvest season. We're talking about it because as a business person, as an entrepreneur, you have to understand seasons. You have to understand what stage you're at. And with every stage, there are different ways in which you have to handle yourself, comport yourself, the mindset you need to have, and most importantly, how to treat your business during that period. When we talk about the season of preparing the land, most people want to gloss over it. But it's a very, very important season because if you remember your basic agric science or your basic science, soil is as much a determinant of success as the seed. So what is the soil in this instance? The soil is the preparation that you do to be able to succeed in your business. I believe that more than 50% of it is mental. Mental because you need to have the right attitude, you need to have the right mindset, and you need to be clear on what you are doing. When we talk about the preparation season and preparing the soil, there are a couple of things that you as an entrepreneur or wannabe entrepreneur can do. You can learn. Learning is by different ways. Sometimes it's by reading, sometimes it's by watching videos, podcasts, etc. But one of the things that people forget is that apprenticeship is a very important aspect and way to learn. Learning by helping someone else in their business, whether it's related or not, gives you valuable insights, valuable skills that are applicable or that will be applicable in your own venture. I think it's a forgotten art, the art of internship. I myself, I like to say I used to be the queen of internships. I did multiple internships, some in banking, some at a radio station, some in ad agencies, finance. But what that did is it gave me exposure to a wide range of businesses. It gave me exposure to a wide range of corporate practices and also even bosses to know, to be able to identify good behaviors from bad behaviors or to be able to see best practices on how to run a business. Now, it's essential that if you're doing such apprenticeships or internships, you have the goal in mind. Meaning, if someone offers you an unpaid internship, you are better off taking that unpaid internship for a defined period of time once you are clear what you're learning or what you're getting out of it. Because that can be some of the most powerful insights, knowing that you don't have to impress the people, but knowing that you're there to learn. When you have that mindset, you approach it with enthusiasm. Any and every job, you take it on. Why? Because you want to know, you want to learn. I was telling my nephew recently that his first job or his first 2 or 3 jobs should literally be him paying them to learn because they're teaching you. All that you learned in school was theory, but the practicality of it, whether it is in a finance role, whether it is in accounting, even if it is in business, has to be with on the ground. You have to actually realize that what you're learning in school isn't directly applicable all the time. So an opportunity by way of a job to learn, to actually form your own opinions, gain insights is invaluable. So when we're preparing the soil, you're learning. Right now, we're in an age where AI is at the forefront, is burgeoning. Climate, ESG, they're all these topics, they're all these words that are becoming almost like buzzwords. But ideally, they are indicating where the future is going. So if you are thinking about a business and there's an area that you don't know, why don't you take the time to learn? Why don't you give yourself a defined period of time? Say you want to start a business in a year. So take 6 months to learn. It can be with the person, it can be by understanding a business, it can even be from afar, just watching the successful businesses in the West, in other countries that are doing well and taking down notes to see what is the secret? What have they figured out? What are they doing differently that you can also apply to your business? So that is one of the ways in which you can prepare your land, prepare your soul for you to succeed in business. I also talked about the mental preparation. Mental because entrepreneurship, as we've established, is a long journey. So why don't you take time before you begin to know your why, to know your motivation, to understand how you work and what keeps you going when you're basically exhausted and you can't keep going. Taking that time to form habits, taking that time to really spell out your motivations or even put out inspirational quotes or things that will be your North Star, that direction for you can be so useful because when you were 3 months down the line and things are not going that great, if you come back to the saw that you prepared, if you come back to the note that you took, to the videos that you watched, to that thesis, the things that you use to reframe your mind, to rewire your brain, to just get your mind set right, it can be invaluable for you. Okay. Then, once you prepare the saw, the very next thing is to sew. Sewing is actually the easiest. Why do I say it's the easiest? Because that's really picking the one thing that you decided to do and beginning to do it. We all know if you're going to start a business, you can talk about it for 5 years or you can start in 5 days. Choose the 5 days. Why? Because the moment you begin, you are learning. And once you understand that you're learning, you are open to making mistakes, you're open to failing quickly, and you're open to adjusting your initial hypothesis. I initially thought that I was going to start a clothing line business. I put everything in place that I thought, meaning I had the money, I'd worked on the fabric, I even had how I was going to distribute the packaging, etc. The one thing I didn't bank on was not having the right kind of seamstresses and tailors that could actually work with the fabric that I had identified. And I created my own fabric, so I was pretty excited. But the reality is that became my limiting factor. That became the challenge. So what did I do? I pivoted. The items that I made as samples, which some of them weren't done too greatly, but the ones that worked, I wore myself. Others I gave to established seamstresses and tailors and made them make outfits for me. So I still have some of the fabric, but what did I pivot the business into? I pivoted it to focus more on another aspect of the business, which was the hair care products. So my initial plan was to have an entire range, a full-on luxury brand, from clothing to hair care to skincare, accessories, jewelry, etc. Currently, the only aspects that have worked out is the hair care, a bit of the skincare, and accessories. That is not failure to me. That is understanding the season that I was in, understanding that these are the seeds that took. Will I come back to the other ones? Probably. But if I still don't, I have some threads or I have some plants that are growing that I can nurture to fruition. So if you have your plan, if you have your business that you want to begin, if you begin the process and it doesn't go the way you want it to or the way that you have mapped it out, the best laid plans, they say, what you have to do is adjust, learn, and reapply. Reapply yourself, reapply your resources, reapply your energies, and look at what you have that you're growing and grow with it. When you're planting, when you're actually sowing a seed, people sometimes have a challenge with identifying which seed do I pursue, which idea do I follow. There are various sources of inspiration. It can be divinely inspired. You can dream, and people have this. I've experienced this myself. You can dream, you can have a vision, and that can be what will push you. But the most common way, of course, is identifying a gap in the market. Maybe it's a need you yourself have, or someone that you know, or it can even be a service that or a good that you have that you realize this product is okay, but it would be better if it had X. Why can't you be the person to do that X? And so these are the little things that you can do to help you get ideas to identify. But remember, it doesn't need to be perfect. Once you have an idea, you can refine it during the process of growing the business. Another thing for me that I found quite powerful is there's no one more creative than a new mom. A new mom identifies all the challenges, the products they're not able to get easily, the allergy medications that they can't find locally, just the opportunities in the market become so real because she's in a moment of a critical need. So every new mom will be inspired to begin some business of some sort. Just check your friends, just look at the people that you know. And it all comes from a pain point. So look at your pain points, look at the opportunities and gaps in the market, look at things that you think can be improved. And of course, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to invent something new. You can look at improving on a product that exists or a service that exists. It can be from another country. So long as you can adapt it and you can make it work here, go for it. So you've prepared your soil, you have planted your seed, then the next thing is to nurture or tend it. It's so important not to uproot your seed. I say this in a spiritual and biblical sense. People pray to God and say, God, help me to grow my business, or help me to, I don't know, find a, like have a baby, or whatever it is that you pray to God for. You pray to God and say, God, help me to make money. And you get an idea and you begin a business. You know what they do? They go back and they start second guessing. That is literally uprooting your seed. You've planted the seed, but if you keep going back with doubts, if you keep going back with confusion, if you keep going back with mixed messages, that seed cannot take root. I'll give an example. There's a young lady who began a juice business. She was doing well with the business. She was effectively just selling customized juices, freshly pressed juices, but she was taking people's dietary needs into consideration. 3, 4, 5 months down the line, she then saw that there was a new business that began in a similar space, but the person was offering other things. So the person was offering cookies, healthy snacks, and other things that she thought, maybe I should add that. Now remember, it wasn't because her business was failing or was struggling. It wasn't because her clients had requested that. It was because she saw someone else doing it. So she suddenly thought that would be the best option for her. What happened? She got distracted. She began focusing her time and her energy developing this new line of cookies, which really distracted from her core. So remember, when you plant your seed and you're nurturing it, be focused, be clear on what your goal is. And if you need guidance, if you need direction, if you need mentorship, seek it. But until you focus on an idea, until you focus on a business, it doesn't have the opportunity to take root. So that is the nurturing and the tending season. Dear African entrepreneur, you have your business that you're working on. Be focused, do not be distracted. Because if you're not careful, there will be a new opportunity every single month. And if you don't have the discipline or the clarity of purpose and mindset, you'll be pursuing multiple things. And your core business, your core idea, your seed will not have time to mature. It will not have time to take root and actually grow into its full potential. And finally, harvest time. Everyone loves a good harvest. Harvest time can be 3 years, 4 years, 1 year, 10 years after you've planted. But if you remember and you did the exercise from before, where you had clarity on why you were beginning, where you were clear on the business you were focused on, where you were clear on the business you were pursuing, and when you were focused, you will notice that you'll be able to grow consistently and you will get to the harvest season. We'll talk about what to do when things are not moving, when things are not progressing. Because every business has their ups and downs. Every business goes through stages. Every business plateaus at a stage. But if you are diligent, if you are consistent, if you are great and you're blessed, and as we talked about the last time, you have luck on your side, you will get to your harvest season. When you're in your harvest period, don't forget to save seeds for the next planting, for the next sowing. Once you have one business that is established, then you can look at multiple or another line of business. It can be related, which would be great, or it can be something totally different. There's a lady who actually began a business doing tie and dye. She was doing the fabrics, the boutiques, everything was going great. Then she decided to provide a service to help people to sew, to find seamstresses and tailors who could work with her fabric. Halfway down the line, she realized that the people that she was depending on for that business, meaning the tailors and seamstresses, we all know the classic story, they disappointed. And so that messed up her business. So you know what she did? She started offering ready to wear pieces, which were a solution to the challenges of her clients. She had her own stylists, she had her own seamstresses, and she was able to get custom pieces done for her clients. Main business, making the fabric. Secondary business, supplying the clothing. That in itself is full time, it makes money, and it is a growth of her business exponentially. So, dear African entrepreneur, remember to prepare your soil, plant your good seed, nurture and tend to your seeds, and ultimately harvest. But remember that after harvest is another planting. So don't get comfortable, be focused, get to that stage before you begin another round of planting. Hope this was helpful. See you soon.